In the summer of June 2014, a dive team was tasked in exploring the mystical depths of the Hinatuan Enchanted River Cave. What these divers didn't realize was that beneath the pristine sky-blue waters lay a hidden and deadly trap spawned by unexpected events. The divers struggled frantically against the relentless pull of a dangerous and intensifying underwater vortex. In the end, the diving community lost one of its most skilled and seasoned cave divers in the most heartbreaking and devastating manner imaginable. These are the final moments of the Hinatuan cave diving tragedy. Dr. Alfonso "Doc Boy" Amores was a natural-born Filipino citizen. Despite being diagnosed with a heart condition at age 40, he pursued a remarkable career as a microsurgeon and specialist in reconstructive surgery. He spent nearly 2 decades working in the United States before returning to his native Philippines in his mid-50s. But he wasn't the kind of man who would be happy to whittle away his years in a rocking chair while watching the seasons pass. He was a man of action. From a young age, Dr. Amores developed a burning passion for exploration, and the people around him quickly took notice of this too. Aside from being an extreme dive enthusiast, he piloted his own plane, skied on challenging mountain slopes, organized medical missions, performed free surgery to indigents, and created marine sanctuaries. He could do anything he set his mind on. The Hinatuan Enchanted River, also called the Hinatuan Sacred River, is a deep spring river on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. It flows into the Philippine Sea and the Pacific Ocean at Barangay Talisay. This river, as widely revered by locals, had earned its reputation for having paranormal activities and supernatural entities inhabiting its waters, such as mermaids and fairies. Legends have it that there are entities in the river who are capable of shapeshifting into human and animal form. Locals had also reported that the fish in the Hinatuan Enchanted River are too clever to be caught by spears, nets, and hook and line, or any other fishing methods locals devised to catch them. Whatever the case, the natives believed the supernatural entities that inhabited the river only served as its guardian and protector to keep the river safe from any form of greedy human endeavors. In addition, this river is also relatively small, being only 300 meters long. This actually makes it more of a large spring than a bona fide river. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for with its grandeur and vibrant waters. This would leave any mad scientist with endless room for exploration and speculations. However, the most interesting thing about the river was that scientists spent years trying to find the spring's source of water, only to come up empty-handed in every expedition. It wasn't until 1999 that 33-year-old diver Alex Santos made a groundbreaking discovery: a hidden narrow passageway at the bottom of the spring's deepest pool. This gateway led to numerous discoveries of a network of cave channels and other chambers that provided a constant supply of water, which acted as a natural filtration system that kept the spring as clear and pristine as the clear blue sky. However, Alex didn't venture far inside, leaving much of the cave largely unexplored. By February 2010, more than a decade later, the cave saw its first extensive exploration. This significant exploration was led by none other than Dr. Amores, accompanied by 2 other members of the Filipino Cave Divers Association. Upon slipping through the narrow opening, they entered a series of chambers connected by relatively narrow passageways, one of which was eventually named Doc's Door. Dr. Amores, along with his team, was very much in awe and intrigued by the cave's fascinating, complex structure. They eventually made 5 separate dives as they couldn't explore the entire cave complex. However, what they found gave scientists a better picture of the cave structure and how water flowed through it. Dr. Amores knew he had just seen the tip of the iceberg and made a promise to return one day to finish what he'd started. So, in early June of 2014, Dr. Amores embarked on a challenging night dive on Micton Island with a close friend. As they were making preparations for upcoming dives at the Enchanted River, his friend acknowledged the challenges they would face, particularly during the exit from the complex cave system. Submerged cave openings like this are called siphons, and they're much more dangerous, as divers would need to exert more energy at the end of the dive when they're already worn out, tired, and running low on oxygen. Dr. Amores and his student divers would have added pressure, as they would be guiding an underwater film crew gathering footage for the popular documentary called Born to be Wild. Keep in mind, some could interpret this as the greedy endeavors that the supernatural entities were supposed to protect the river from. On the morning of June 17th, Dr. Amores and his student divers were preparing their gear and reviewing their plan to scout the cave for filming locations. After putting on their gear, they entered the clear blue waters over the deepest part of the spring and began descending the narrow entrance, approximately 40 meters down. But at around 30 meters, they came across obstacles that were blocking their only entrance at the dock's door. Just a couple of meters ahead, two distinct passages led into the mayor's chamber, which was roughly the size of a small airplane hangar. At first, Dr. Amores motioned for his students to enter through the passageway known as Bernal's Crawl, but the sediment blockage by the entrance and the current was just too strong for them to swim through. Because they were diving at low tide, the water coming from the entrance was far stronger than normal, making the whole situation more difficult. They eventually tried the next passageway, known as Patrice's Way. Though the current here was also strong, it was manageable. So, Dr. Amores once again motioned for his students to enter one by one. Because the narrow passageway prohibited them from entering all at the same time, the students fought hard. Once inside, Dr. Amores kicked his way through after what seems like an eternity. By this point, Dr. Amores was already worn out given his age. Getting inside the cave had proven to be far more difficult than anyone had expected. This also meant that each diver had used more of their oxygen gas mix than prepared. Considering their situation now, it would have been best to call the dive off by this point, but that decision was up to the dive leader, Dr. Amores. Shockingly, Dr. Amores decided that they should still continue the dive, despite seeing the red flags. He may have been worried about the crew's schedule for the filming, but then again, calling it off wouldn't have been a huge deal. Dr. Amores and his students eventually continued to dive towards the mayor's chamber, and from there, they passed a cave structure known as Kelvin's Kneecap, immediately followed by Paul's Passage, before continuing on a 45-degree descent to about 285 feet or 85 meters. It was only up until this point that Dr. Amores made the decision to finally call off the dive. Although everyone was already exhausted, they would still need to embark on a tough journey exiting the cave, fighting the unusually strong currents. It was almost as if an invisible force was constantly pushing them back to the deep dark. When they reached Doc's door, student diver Jamie Lepac was surprised that Dr. Amores motioned for him to swim out first. Since Dr. Amores was the last one to enter the cave during the beginning of the dive, protocol says he should have been the first one to exit. But this could have been interpreted in many ways. For example, Dr. Amores, as their leader, likely felt uneasy about leaving his students behind, as it's the fundamental role of a leader to look after the group. In addition, considering Dr. Amores' kind and caring personality, he likely didn't want to put extra risk on his students. Whatever the case, the students followed the dive leader's decision without question nor hesitation, fully putting faith into his judgment at that moment. As they fought their way to the entrance, Jamie sensed that something was incredibly off. He noticed Dr. Amores wasn't kicking his legs as viciously as he should have. Shortly after, Dr. Amores failed to respond appropriately when Jamie gave him the OK sign to let him know he was about to swim through. He found this eerily odd and slightly disturbing because they were relatively close and looking right at each other. Despite the strong currents, the younger dive students were able to propel themselves through the siphon towards the safe haven of the deep pool where they could see the surface. Meanwhile, Dr. Amores made several attempts to follow, but each time, he only slipped further and further away, almost as if there was something dragging him back down. Watching from the other side was Jamie, contemplating if he could still go and rescue his friend and mentor. But just as he was about to, a shocking revelation hit him. His gas was nearly gone, and he was just too mentally and physically exhausted to do anything else by this point. Jamie had no choice but to make the heart-wrenching decision to swim back through the exit. The students finally broke through the surface of the water approximately after 75 minutes of being submerged. Sadly, what may have been a friend to many, a mentor, and above all, a loving father, was no longer with them. It must have been heartbreaking to imagine what Dr. Amores was thinking during his final moments, having to watch his students swim away and unable to do anything about the situation. Nonetheless, he tied himself to the safety line in what seemed to be a last-ditch effort in getting out. However, another theory suggests that he tied himself to the line to make it easier for the rescuers to find his body. If true, this only showed that Dr. Amores knew his fate and was left with no choice but to accept it. Meanwhile, on the surface, his students immediately notified local authorities that their mentor was still stuck down there in the cave. Upon arrival, the rescuers noticed that the currents had remained unchanged, leaving them with no choice but to postpone the search until the waters had calmed down. Eventually, Dr. Amores' lifeless body was discovered around 40 meters inside the cave after an 8-hour search. The autopsy conducted by the authorities concluded that Dr. Amores died of a heart attack, likely from extreme panic. Ultimately, despite being one of the world's most experienced divers, his age and heart condition proved to be decisive factors that led to his death. If you made it this far, consider subscribing for more videos detailing the final moments of the most horrific tragedies in human history.